I signed my name on the final line, and the notary stamped the document with a finality that echoed through the sterile courthouse room. My ex-husband's lawyer looked confused. David looked confident, almost smug. His mother, sitting beside him with her designer handbag clutched in her lap, wore a victorious smile. "You're sure about this?" the family court judge asked me one last time, peering over her glasses with concern. "You're voluntarily terminating your parental rights to your daughter, Emma? You understand this is permanent and irrevocable." "Absolutely certain, Your Honor," I said, my voice steady and clear. I didn't look at David. I didn't need to. I could feel his satisfaction radiating across the room. The judge sighed, signed her portion, and it was done. Emma was solely his responsibility now. No shared custody, no child support from him to me, no rights for me at all. I had just signed away my 3-year-old daughter. David's mother actually laughed, a quiet, tinkling sound of triumph. "Finally," she murmured to her son, "finally you're free of that gold-digging leech." I stood, collected my copy of the papers, and walked out. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I didn't beg them to reconsider. I simply left, my heels clicking on the marble floor with perfect, measured steps. Behind me, I heard David say to his lawyer, "That was easier than I thought. I figured she'd fight me on this." "Some women know when they're beat," his mother replied. If only they knew. If only they had any idea what was coming. Because I had died once before. 4 years ago, or rather 4 years from now, depending on how you looked at it, I had drawn my last breath in a hospital bed, alone, while David had been vacationing in the Maldives with his mistress. Emma had been 7 years old, confused and scared, raised by nannies while David worked his 60-hour weeks and his mother poisoned her against my memory. I had died of a ruptured appendix that went septic because I'd ignored the pain for 3 days, too busy working my 2 jobs to afford Emma's private school tuition, the school David's mother insisted on but refused to pay for. "You're her mother," she'd said. "Providing for your child is your responsibility." David had inherited millions when his father died, but somehow Emma's expenses always fell to me. Dance classes? My responsibility. Medical bills? My responsibility. The nanny? "You're the one who wanted to work," his mother had sneered. "You figure it out." I had died angry, bitter, and broken. My last thought had been of Emma and how I'd failed her. Then I woke up. I woke up 4 years earlier, in my 26-year-old body, lying in bed next to David, 6 months pregnant with Emma. And I remembered everything. Every moment of the next 4 years played in my mind like a film I'd already seen. I knew David would cheat. I knew his mother would sabotage me at every turn. I knew they'd bleed me dry financially while telling everyone I was the opportunist. I knew that in 3.5 years, I'd be working myself to death while David claimed to be a devoted single father to our friends, even though he saw Emma maybe an hour a week. I knew that when I died, he'd remarried within 6 months. The mistress, of course. And Emma would grow up calling another woman mom, while my memory faded into nothing. This time I was going to play it differently. I spent the first few months of this second chance preparing. I filed for divorce when Emma was 2 months old, citing irreconcilable differences. David didn't fight it. He seemed almost relieved. His mother encouraged it, probably thrilled to have her precious son free of me. They offered me a pittance in the settlement, and I took it without argument. $50,000 and no alimony in exchange for shared custody. "She's desperate," I heard his mother tell him. "She knows she can't do better than you." For 2 years, I played the struggling single mother. I worked my teaching job, took extra tutoring gigs, and lived in a modest apartment. I showed up for my custody days, exhausted and stressed, while David maintained his luxury lifestyle. His mother made sure everyone in their social circle knew how magnanimous they were being, allowing me to see Emma at all. "She's not exactly mother material," his mother told her bridge club, and I heard about it through a mutual acquaintance. "But David is such a good father, he insists Emma needs her mother, even if she's inadequate." What they didn't know was that I was investing every spare penny. I remembered which stocks would soar, which cryptocurrency to buy before the boom, which real estate markets would explode. The modest teacher with her small apartment was quietly building a fortune. I had advisors who thought I had the Midas touch. If only they knew I was simply remembering the future. When Emma turned 3, I hired a private investigator. I knew what I'd find, but I needed documentation this time. Photos of David's affair, records of his mother's country club bills that David paid while claiming he couldn't afford to increase child support, evidence of the trust fund his father had left specifically for Emma, a trust David and his mother were quietly embezzling from. Then I started the process that led to today. I petitioned the court to terminate my parental rights. David's lawyer had called mine, confused. Your client wants to give up her daughter? That's correct, my lawyer said. She feels she cannot provide adequately for the child and believes Emma would be better off with her father, full-time. The lawyer had probably hung up and immediately called David with the good news. I imagined the celebration. David and his mother, finally free of me, no more custody exchanges, no more having to acknowledge my existence. Emma would be fully theirs to mold and control. They didn't question why I wanted this. They didn't think it was suspicious. They just assumed I was giving up, admitting defeat, conceding that they'd won, and in a way they had. They'd won Emma. They'd won full custody and full control. What they didn't understand was what came with that victory. Because in my past life, I'd fought tooth and nail for custody. I'd argued for more time, more rights, more say in Emma's life. And because of that, David had been able to claim that expenses should be split. She wants equal custody. She should pay equally, his lawyer had argued successfully. But now Emma was solely his responsibility. Every bill, every expense, every cost. And I knew exactly what was coming. I left the courthouse and drove to my apartment, the modest, carefully maintained facade of my struggling existence. Tomorrow, I'd start the next phase. But tonight, I let myself mourn. Not for the rights I'd signed away, but for Emma, for the confusion she'd feel, for the lies they'd tell her about me. But I'd learned the hard truth in my death. I couldn't save Emma by destroying myself. This time, I had to play the long game. This time, I had to let her go so I could eventually save her. My phone rang at 6 p.m. David. Just wanted to let you know you won't need to come for your usual weekend with Emma anymore, he said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. Since you gave up your rights, I think a clean break would be best for her. I understand, I said quietly. And just so you know, my mother thinks it would be better if you didn't try to contact Emma at all. It'll just confuse her. Of course. Good. Glad you're being reasonable about this. He paused. You know, this is really for the best. Emma deserves better than... I hung up. I didn't need to hear the rest. I'd heard it all before in another life. Let him have his moment. Let them both have their victory celebration. The bills would start arriving in 3 weeks. The first thing everyone forgets about children is how expensive they truly are. When costs are split, when both parents contribute, it's manageable. Tight sometimes, but manageable. But when one parent has sole responsibility, when every single expense falls on one person's shoulders, that's when reality hits. Emma was 3 years old, which in my past life had been just the beginning of the expensive years. I remembered it all in vivid detail because I'd been the one paying for most of it. Preschool at the Montessori Academy his mother insisted on, $2,400 per month. The nanny, because David worked long hours, $3,500 per month plus taxes and health insurance. Call it $4,200 with all the added costs. Emma's pediatric appointments, routine visits, vaccines, the inevitable ear infections and stomach bugs. With David's high-deductible health insurance plan, each sick visit was $200 and $300 out of pocket before the deductible was met. The deductible was $6,000 per year. Dance classes, $300 per month. His mother had already enrolled Emma for the fall session. I knew this because I'd overheard her bragging about it at the grocery store 2 weeks ago. I'd kept a meticulous record in my past life when I'd been frantically trying to budget. I knew exactly how much everything cost. But the bills I was really waiting for hadn't arrived yet. In my past life, when Emma was 3.5, 6 months from now, she'd broken her arm falling off playground equipment. The emergency room visit, the orthopedic surgeon, the follow-up appointments, the physical therapy, $14,000, of which insurance covered $4,000 after the deductible. I'd paid it, taking out a loan I'd spend 2 years repaying. Then 4 months after that, Emma had needed her tonsils removed. Chronic infections, the doctor said. Another surgery, another hospital stay, $18,000. Insurance covered $6,000. I'd put it on credit cards that time, the interest eating me alive. And then the big one. The one I was really waiting for. When Emma was 4 years and 2 months old, she'd been diagnosed with a learning disability. Not severe, but enough to require intervention. David's mother had insisted on the best specialist, the top neuropsychologist in the state, private tutoring 3 times a week. The diagnosis alone had cost $5,000 and insurance didn't cover educational testing. The tutoring was $150 per hour, 3 times a week. The specialized preschool program to help her, an additional $1,800 per month on top of regular preschool. In my past life, I'd paid for all of it. David had claimed his salary couldn't stretch that far, despite the fact that he was pulling in $300,000 a year as a corporate lawyer. I have other expenses, he'd said. The house, the car payments, my mother's medical bills. His mother's medical bills had been cosmetic procedures, I'd later learned, but by then I'd been too exhausted to fight. This time, though, every single bill would go to him. The sole legal parent, the only one responsible. I gave it 3 weeks. On day 19, my phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. Is this Sarah? A woman's voice, professional. Yes? This is Jennifer from Bright Horizons Montessori Academy. I'm calling about Emma Chen's account. It's showing a past due balance of $2,400, and we need to update the payment information on file. I let a moment of silence pass. I'm sorry, but Emma isn't my responsibility anymore. You'll need to speak with her father, David Chen. Oh, I apologize. I must have outdated information. Let me update our records. Do you have his contact information? I recited his cell phone and office number from memory. Thank you so much. I'll give him a call right now. 2 hours later, David texted me. The school called. You need to update your payment info. I texted back. I'm not legally responsible for Emma anymore. You are. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, finally. What are you talking about? I terminated my parental rights, remember? You and your mother were very happy about it. Emma is solely your responsibility now. That includes all expenses. My phone rang immediately. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined. A text. Answer your fucking phone. I didn't. The voicemail he left was a masterpiece of entitled rage. You can't just stop paying for your daughter because you signed some papers. She's still your child. You're still her mother. You need to pay your share. I saved the voicemail. I had a feeling I'd want to remember it. The next call came 3 days later. The nanny. Sarah, it's Maria. I'm so sorry to bother you, but Mr. Chen hasn't paid me in 2 weeks and I have rent due. I've tried calling him, but he keeps saying he'll have it next week. I love Emma, but I can't work without pay. Do you know what's going on? Poor Maria. She'd been good to Emma, patient and kind. Maria, I'm so sorry. I'm not able to help. I terminated my parental rights, so legally Emma is David's sole responsibility now. You'll need to work that out with him directly. Oh, a long pause. I see. Well, thank you for letting me know. She quit 2 days later. I knew because David's mother called me, her voice shrill with outrage. How dare you? That nanny quit. And now David can't find anyone to watch Emma. He has important meetings he can't miss. That's unfortunate, I said calmly. But Emma is David's responsibility now. I'm sure he'll figure something out. You are her mother. No, actually, I'm not. Not legally, as you and David were so eager to make happen. This is outrageous. You can't just abandon your child. I'm not abandoning anyone. I voluntarily terminated my rights, with David's full support and cooperation. He wanted full custody. He got it. Congratulations. She hung up on me. I imagined her in her pristine living room, face red with fury, unable to comprehend that her victory had come with consequences. The calls kept coming: the dance studio, the pediatrician's office, the insurance company. One by one, I redirected them all to David. 6 weeks after I signed the papers, I went to the grocery store and ran into one of David's mother's bridge club friends. Nancy, I thought her name was. She looked at me with poorly concealed disgust. "I heard what you did," she said, her voice dripping with judgment. "Walking away from your own daughter. What kind of mother are you?" "The kind who signed the papers David asked me to sign," I said pleasantly. "He and his mother were so happy about it, I'm surprised she didn't mention that part." Nancy's expression flickered with confusion. "Well, that's not. They got exactly what they wanted. Emma is completely theirs now. Every decision, every responsibility, every bill. It's wonderful, really. I'm sure David is thriving." I pushed my cart past her, leaving her standing there with her mouth slightly open. I knew what was happening. I knew because I'd lived it. David had assumed I'd keep paying for things out of guilt or maternal obligation. He'd assumed that legal documents didn't really matter when it came to a mother and child. He'd assumed I'd be too emotionally attached to let Emma suffer. But I wasn't letting Emma suffer. Emma was fine. She was fed, clothed, housed, and as far as I could tell from my discreet inquiries, healthy. What was suffering was David's bank account. In my past life, I'd spent roughly $48,000 per year on Emma's expenses. $48,000 that I'd scraped together from teaching salaries and side hustles, destroying my health and my savings in the process. David made $300,000 per year. He could afford it. The problem was he'd structured his entire life around not having to. His mortgage on the luxury condo, $5,800 per month. His car lease on the BMW, $100 per month. His country club membership that his mother insisted was necessary for networking, $800 per month. His mother's allowance that he'd been providing since his father died, $3,000 per month. Utilities, insurance, his own expenses, his girlfriend's expensive tastes. It all added up. When he'd had me paying Emma's costs, his $300,000 salary had been comfortable. With Emma's expenses falling entirely on him, the math didn't work anymore. 3 months after I signed away my rights, David's lawyer called mine. "My client would like to discuss a modification of the arrangement," he said carefully. "What arrangement?" my lawyer asked. "Ms. Chen has no legal relationship with the child." "Perhaps a voluntary support agreement, given that Ms. Chen is the biological mother who voluntarily and legally terminated all rights and responsibilities. I'm confused about what you're asking for." My client is finding the financial burden of sole custody to be significant. Then perhaps he should have considered that before celebrating his client's termination of rights, my lawyer said dryly. "My client has no legal obligation whatsoever. If Mr. Chen can't afford his daughter, he's welcome to surrender his parental rights to the state." There was a long silence. "That won't be necessary." But I knew David. I knew his pride, his ego, his need to be seen as successful and in control. He'd never admit defeat. He'd never admit this was crushing him. He'd just get more desperate. The first sign came when he put the condo on the market. I saw the listing online. Luxury 2-bedroom in prime location, priced to sell. He was downsizing. The second sign was when his mother's bridge club friend, a different one this time, approached me at a coffee shop. "I heard about the divorce and the custody situation," she said, her tone more gentle than Nancy's had been. "Helen is my friend, but I wanted you to know, I think what she and David did to you was wrong. I saw how hard you worked for Emma, and now Helen is complaining constantly about how much Emma hates how David's struggling, but she won't help him pay for anything. She says it's his responsibility as the parent." I sipped my coffee. "That's interesting. She said the same thing to me for years." "I know, that's why I'm telling you. Helen is panicking because David asked her for money, and she refused. She told him she couldn't compromise her retirement, that he needed to man up and handle his responsibilities." I couldn't help but smile. How ironic. "There's something else." She leaned in closer. Emma's been asking about you. David doesn't know I know this, but my daughter runs into their new nanny at the park sometimes. Emma keeps asking where you are, why you don't visit anymore. The nanny says David tells her you didn't want her, but Emma's too young to understand that. My heart clenched. That was the hard part, the part I had to keep reminding myself was necessary. She's young, I said quietly. She'll be okay. Will she? Because from what I hear, David is never home anymore. He's working even longer hours trying to make more money. The nanny, the third one in 3 months, by the way, basically raises her. And Helen refuses to help beyond the occasional visit where she brings expensive toys but won't actually, help. This I hadn't known. 3 nannies in 3 months. That was worse than my first timeline. I appreciate you telling me, I said. She hesitated. I don't know what happened between you and David, but I know Helen. She's my friend, but she's also one of the most selfish people I've ever met. Whatever game she and David played with you, I hope karma catches up with them. It will, I assured her. It already is. Month 4 brought the development I'd been waiting for. Emma fell at preschool and broke her arm. The call came at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. Not to me, I found out through the same network of acquaintances who'd been keeping me informed. Emma was fine, they said. Clean break, would heal perfectly. But the bills... I waited. David's mother called me 3 days later, her voice tight with barely suppressed panic. The hospital is saying the bill is $15,000. David's insurance barely covers any of it. That's unfortunate. You need to pay half of this. It's only fair. Fair? I don't think you understand how this works, Helen. I have no legal obligation to Emma. None. Zero. The courts made that very clear when David and you celebrated my termination of parental rights. She's your daughter. No, she's David's daughter. Mine too, biologically, but not legally. Not anymore. This is what you wanted, remember? This was your victory. We never thought... She stopped herself. You never thought I'd actually stop paying for things, I finished for her. You thought legal documents were just formalities. You thought I'd keep being Emma's mother in all the ways that cost money, while you and David got to be her parents in all the ways that mattered. You thought you could have it both ways. How can you be so cruel? I laughed. It wasn't a nice sound. Helen, you told me I was a gold digger. You told me I was using David for his money. You sabotaged every attempt I made to be a good mother. You convinced David to fight me on every expense, to make me beg for help with our daughter. And when I finally gave you what you wanted, sole custody for your precious son, you celebrated. You threw a party. I know because Nancy told me. Silence. Emma's hospital bill is David's responsibility. Just like you told me for years that providing for my child was my responsibility. Good luck. I hung up before she could respond. The next call came from David himself, 2 days later, 11 p.m., which meant he'd been drinking. You're destroying me, he said, his voice slurred. Do you know what this is doing to me? I can't keep up with all these costs. The preschool alone is killing me, and now this hospital bill. You make $300,000 a year, David. That's not as much as you think. The condo, the car, my mother, your mother who refused to help you pay Emma's medical bills? He was quiet for a moment. How do you know about that? People talk, especially when there's hypocrisy involved. Your mother told me for years that providing for Emma was solely my responsibility. Now she's telling you the same thing. How does it feel? This is different. How? Because you're her mother. Mothers don't just abandon their children. I didn't abandon anyone. I terminated my rights with your full cooperation and support. You wanted this. You got it. If you're unhappy with the results, that's not my problem. Please. And there it was, the crack in his voice I'd been waiting for. Sarah, please, I can't do this alone. I thought I could, but I can't. I need help. You need money. Yes, I need you to help pay for things. Not all of it, just half. That's fair, isn't it? She's half yours. She's not mine at all, David. The state of California is very clear on this. I have no legal connection to Emma whatsoever. I'll talk to my lawyer. We can draw up a voluntary support agreement. Why would I volunteer to support a child I have no legal rights to? What's in it for me? Another long pause. What do you want? And there it was, the question I'd been waiting months to hear. Nothing you're willing to give, I said softly. Good night, David. Wait, Sarah, wait, please. I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Anything? Yes. Will you give me back my parental rights? He was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Then, I can't. Why not? Because my mother would kill me. Because everyone would know I failed. Because I'd have to admit I can't handle this alone. Then I guess you'll have to figure it out. Because I'm not giving you money for nothing, David. I'm not your ATM anymore. I hung up. My hands were shaking, not from anger, from satisfaction. This was the moment. This was when it started to really crumble. The truly spectacular collapse began in month 5. Emma got sick. Not seriously, just a nasty case of strep throat that required antibiotics and a few days home from preschool. But David couldn't take off work. Partnership decision was coming up, I heard through the grapevine, and he was desperate to prove himself. His mother refused to help. I already raised my children, David. I'm not raising yours. The nanny quit when he couldn't pay her on time again. He cycled through 2 more in 3 weeks. And then Emma got sick again. A stomach bug that tore through her preschool. Then an ear infection. Then another one. With the high deductible insurance plan, every visit was out of pocket. I knew because I tracked it the same way I'd tracked my own expenses in my past life. Pediatrician visits, urgent care visits, prescriptions. It was adding up to hundreds every week. Meanwhile, the expenses didn't stop. Preschool tuition, dance classes, he'd tried to cancel, but his mother insisted Emma needed activities. Food, clothes, toys, books. Every child expense that had been nearly invisible when split between 2 parents was now crushing him alone. His mortgage payment was late. I knew because the condo association sent a notice that was visible through his front window when I drove by. I didn't stop. I had no reason to be there, but I drove by sometimes, watching from a distance. The BMW was gone, replaced by a sensible Honda. The country club membership was canceled. I heard about that from Helen's bridge club friend, who reported that Helen was humiliated by David's resignation. And still, the bills kept coming. Month 6 brought the tonsillitis diagnosis. Chronic inflammation, the doctor said. They needed to come out. Surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks out. David called me the day he got the surgery estimate. $22,000, he said, his voice hollow. That's what they quoted me. Insurance will cover maybe 6 if I'm lucky. Sarah, I don't have that kind of money. I don't know what to do. Cancel the surgery. I can't. The doctor says she needs it. Then I guess you'll have to find the money, won't you? How? How am I supposed to find $16,000? I'm barely making my mortgage payments as it is. Sell something. Take out a loan. Ask your mother. My mother won't help. She says this is my responsibility. She's right. It is. Sarah, please. He was crying now, actual tears in his voice. Please, I'm begging you. I know I was wrong. I know I treated you badly. I know I should have appreciated what you were doing, how hard you were working. I get it now. I understand. Please, just help me with this one thing. This one surgery. I'll pay you back, I swear. How? You just said you're barely making your mortgage payments. I'll figure something out. I'll get a second job. You'll work yourself to death? I asked softly. Like I did? Silence. That's what I was doing, David. In our marriage, after the divorce, I was working myself to death paying for Emma's expenses while you lived your comfortable life. Do you remember what you told me when I asked for help with her dental surgery? Sarah, you said, that's what mothers do. They sacrifice. Do you remember that? I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please, please don't make Emma suffer because I was an idiot. Emma isn't suffering. She has a father who makes $300,000 a year. If her father can't manage money properly, that's not a reflection on her or on me. I'll give you back your rights. If that's what you want, I'll do it. We can go back to court. We can share custody again. Whatever you want. And there it was. The offer I'd been building toward for 6 months. No, I said. What? I don't want my rights back. Then what do you want? There has to be something. Name your price. I don't have a price, David. I just wanted you to understand. I wanted you to feel what I felt. I wanted you to know what it's like to be crushed under the weight of expenses you can't meet, to be judged for not doing enough, to be exhausted and desperate and alone. I understand. I get it. You proved your point. Did I? Because I'm not sure I did. I think you understand that you're struggling financially, but do you understand what you put me through emotionally? Do you understand how it felt to have my own husband and his mother tell me I wasn't good enough, wasn't working hard enough, wasn't sacrificing enough? Do you understand what it's like to die alone in a hospital because you ignored your own health to pay for your child's dance classes? What? He sounded genuinely confused. Die? Sarah, what are you talking about? I closed my eyes. He didn't remember. In this timeline, I hadn't died. I'd gotten out before it killed me. Nothing, I said. Figure out Emma's surgery on your own. I hung up. David took out a loan. I found out because he had to provide financial disclosures when he tried to refinance his condo mortgage to a lower rate. My lawyer received a copy, standard procedure in cases where child support had been involved, and technically our old support agreement was still on file somewhere in the court system. His debt-to-income ratio was catastrophic. The loan for Emma's surgery, medical bills on multiple credit cards, a personal loan from some questionable online lender at 22% interest. He was drowning. The surgery went fine. Emma recovered perfectly because of course she did. She was a healthy kid, she just needed medical care. Care that cost money. 1 week after Emma's surgery, David's mother showed up at my apartment. I'd been expecting her eventually. She looked older than I remembered, more worn. She'd always been so carefully put together. Designer clothes, perfect makeup, manicured nails. Today her hands trembled slightly and there were bags under her eyes. "May I come in?" she asked. I almost said no, but curiosity won. I stepped aside. She looked around my modest apartment with barely concealed disdain. Says, "You live here?" "I do." "It's so small. It serves my needs." I didn't offer her coffee or a seat. "What do you want, Helen?" She took a breath. "I want you to help my son." "No." "I haven't even told you what, It doesn't matter what you want me to do. The answer is no." Her mouth tightened. "You're being incredibly petty about this." Am I? He made mistakes. People make mistakes. You can't punish him forever. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm simply not volunteering to solve problems that aren't mine. Emma is yours. No, actually, she's not. You made very sure of that. Helen's facade cracked. I was wrong. Is that what you want to hear? I was wrong about you. I thought you were using David. I thought you were lazy. I thought... She stopped, tears forming. I thought I was protecting my son. I thought I was helping him. But I was wrong, and now he's falling apart, and I don't know how to fix it. You could give him money. I don't have that kind of money. I have my retirement fund, and if I start dipping into that, You might struggle financially? I finished. You might have to make sacrifices? You might have to go without? She stared at me. For years, you told me that providing for my child was my responsibility, that I needed to sacrifice to work harder to find a way. Now your son is in the same position, and you won't help him because it might cost you. That's different. How? Because you were younger. You had time to rebuild. I'm retirement age. I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. I stepped closer to her. When I was breaking my back to pay for Emma's expenses, when I was working 2 jobs and exhausting myself, when I came to David begging for help and he refused because you told him not to enable me, where were you? You were at the country club. You were getting your hair done. You were on cruises and at spa weekends. You were living your comfortable life while I destroyed myself trying to provide for your granddaughter. And you justified it by saying it was my responsibility, not yours. Her lips trembled. Now David is drowning, and you're using the exact same logic on him that you used on me. It's his responsibility, not yours. You have to protect yourself, not sacrifice for him. How does it feel, Helen? How does it feel to watch your own child suffer and tell yourself that helping would be enabling? You're a monster, she whispered. No, I'm just someone who learned from the best. She left without another word. Month 7 brought the diagnosis I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Emma's preschool teacher called David with concerns about her development. She was struggling with pre-reading skills, seemed to process instructions differently than her peers, had difficulty with certain fine motor tasks. David, to his credit, didn't ignore it. He took her to a pediatric neuropsychologist for evaluation. The diagnosis, a mild learning disability. Nothing severe, nothing that couldn't be addressed with proper support. But the support she needed was expensive, the evaluation itself, $4,800. The recommended specialized tutoring, $150 per hour, 3 times per week. The therapeutic preschool program, an additional $1,800 per month. Total annual cost for Emma's learning support, roughly $31,000, on top of everything else. David's lawyer called my lawyer. My client is formally requesting financial assistance for the child's medical and educational needs. My client has no legal obligation whatsoever. Request denied. The child has a documented disability that requires intervention. And the child has a legal parent with a $300,000 annual income. Surely he can manage. Mr. Chen's financial situation has become untenable. He's drowning in debt from medical expenses. Then perhaps he should have thought about that before pursuing sole custody. Or perhaps he should have been less judgmental about his ex-wife's financial struggles when she was bearing these costs alone. This is about punishing my client, not about what's best for the child. What's best for the child is having a parent who can afford to care for her. If Mr. Chen cannot, there are options. He can apply for state assistance. He can petition the court to find other suitable guardians. But my client is not a viable option, as she has no legal relationship to the child. She's the biological mother, who voluntarily terminated all rights and responsibilities with Mr. Chen's full support and encouragement. I believe his mother threw a party to celebrate. That's hardly the action of someone concerned about the child's welfare. The lawyer hung up. 2 days later, David showed up at my school. He waited in the parking lot until my classes ended, then intercepted me at my car. "We need to talk," he said. He looked terrible. Weight loss, dark circles under his eyes, a defeated slump to his shoulders that I'd never seen before. David had always carried himself with confidence, with the assurance of someone who'd never really struggled. That man was gone. "There's nothing to talk about," I said, unlocking my car. Emma's evaluation said she needs help. Special tutoring, a different school program, do you know how much that costs? I know exactly how much it costs. I paid for it in... I stopped myself. I know it's expensive. I can't afford it. I've cut every expense I can. I sold my condo and moved into a 2-bedroom apartment. I drive a 10-year-old car. I don't go out. I don't buy anything for myself. I'm working 70 hours a week and I still can't make the math work. That's unfortunate. That's it? That's all you have to say? I looked at him, really looked at him, at the desperation in his eyes, the defeat in his posture. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it? To make him understand what he'd put me through? But looking at him now, I felt empty, not triumphant, not satisfied, just tired. What do you want me to say, David? That I feel sorry for you? I don't. You did this to yourself. I did it to us, to me and Emma both. She's the one suffering because I was an idiot. Is she suffering? Is she hungry, homeless, unclothed? No, but then she's not suffering. She's just not getting everything she wants, which is a normal part of childhood. The tutoring would be nice. The specialized program would be helpful, but she'll survive without them. The evaluation said she needs intervention now while she's young, or she'll struggle her whole life. Then find a way to afford it. How, Indy? He was yelling now, drawing looks from other teachers heading to their cars. How am I supposed to do this? I've tried everything. I've taken out loans. I've cut every expense. I'm working every hour I can. What else can I do? You could have been less cruel to me when I was in your position, I said quietly. You could have helped instead of judging. You could have been a partner instead of an adversary. You could have told your mother to stop sabotaging me. You could have done a lot of things differently, David, but you didn't. So this is revenge? You're going to let Emma suffer because of what I did to you? Emma isn't suffering. Her father is just finally bearing the full weight of responsibility for raising a child. Welcome to single parenthood. I'll give you back your rights. Full custody, I don't care anymore. Just take her. The words hung in the air between us. I'd been waiting for this moment. Months of planning, of patience, of watching him crumble. This was supposed to be my victory, my big moment. But all I felt was sad. You don't mean that, I said. I do. I can't do this anymore. I can't be what she needs. Take her, please. Just take her, and I'll pay whatever child support the court orders. No. He stared at me. What? I said no, I'm not taking Emma from you. Why not? Isn't that what you wanted, to prove I couldn't handle it? I wanted you to understand what you put me through. You do now. Congratulations. But I'm not going to use Emma as a pawn anymore. Neither of us should. Then what am I supposed to do? I unlocked my car and tossed my bag in the back seat. You're going to be a father, David. A real one. You're going to figure out how to make your budget work. You're going to find free or low-cost resources for Emma's learning support. They exist. You just have to do the work to find them. You're going to ask your mother for help, and if she refuses, you're going to realize exactly what kind of person she is. You're going to grow up. Sarah, and you're going to stop calling me. Stop having your lawyer contact mine. Stop trying to make me responsible for fixing your mistakes. Emma is your daughter. You wanted sole custody. You got it. Now be her father. I got in my car. He stood there staring at me through the windswing, and I saw the exact moment he realized I was serious, that I wasn't going to save him. I drove away. Month 9 brought an unexpected development. Helen had a heart attack. Not fatal, thankfully, but serious enough that she spent a week in the hospital and came out with a drastically different perspective on life. Her medical bills, even with Medicare, were substantial. She called David asking for help with the bills. He told her he couldn't afford it. I heard about it through the usual network, Helen's Bridge Club friend, who seemed to have appointed herself my personal news source. Helen is furious, she told me over coffee. She can't believe David won't help her after everything she did for him. She keeps saying, I raised him, I gave him everything, and now when I need him, he abandons me. I pointed out that she'd done exactly that to him when Emma needed help, and she hung up on me. How poetic, I murmured. The real news is that Helen's talking about moving in with David. To save money on her own place, she says, but also to help with Emma since David can't afford a nanny anymore. I raise my eyebrows. That should be interesting. Interesting is one word for it. Can you imagine? Helen, who refused to actually help raise Emma, now forced to be her primary caretaker while David works? She's going to hate it. She would. Helen liked being a grandmother in theory. Expensive gifts, occasional visits, bragging rights. Actually raising a child? That was beneath her. But she was about to learn what necessity looked like. Month 11 was when I got the call from Emma's new preschool. David had moved her to a much cheaper program. Ms. Chen, this is Director Martinez from Sunshine Preschool. I understand you're no longer legally Emma's parent, but I wanted to reach out because Emma talks about you constantly. My heart clenched. She does? Every day. She asks when you're coming to pick her up. She draws pictures of you. Yesterday she told me her daddy said you didn't want her anymore, but she doesn't believe him. She says you wouldn't leave her unless something bad happened. I closed my eyes. How is she? Honestly, she's struggling. She's a sweet child, very bright despite her learning challenges, but she's sad and confused. Her grandmother picks her up most days, and there's a lot of tension there. Emma came in with bruises on her arm last week. She said her grandmother grabbed her too hard when she was misbehaving. My eyes snapped open. Bruises? We filed a report with CPS as required. It was investigated and deemed accidental excessive discipline but not abuse. But I wanted you to know. I got your number from the emergency contact list that hasn't been updated yet. Thank you for telling me. I know this isn't my place, but whatever happened between you and Emma's father, she misses you. She needs you. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment staring at the wall for an hour. This wasn't supposed to be part of the plan. Emma was supposed to be fine. David was supposed to be overwhelmed, but managing. Helen was supposed to be humbled, but not actively harming anyone. Bruises. Emma had bruises from Helen's rough handling. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. I need to know what my options are, I said. The answer was not many. I had no legal standing. I couldn't petition for custody or even visitation. I'd voluntarily terminated all rights, but I could file a report with CPS myself. I could request a welfare check. I could make noise. I did all of it. The CPS investigation was more thorough this time. They found a stressed, overwhelmed grandmother who'd never really wanted to raise a child. They found a father working 70 hours a week who barely saw his daughter. They found a 4-year-old with an unaddressed learning disability, missing the support she needed because her family couldn't afford it. No overt abuse, no neglect severe enough for removal, but a child who wasn't thriving. The caseworker called me. I understand you're the biological mother? Yes, but I have no legal rights. Would you be willing to regain those rights? That would require the father's cooperation. He might be more cooperative than you think. David called me the day after CPS visited his apartment for the second time. You win, he said. This isn't about winning. Yes, it is. It always was. You wanted me to fail, and I did. Congratulations. You can stop now. I haven't done anything. CPS came because a mandatory reporter saw bruises on Emma. My mother didn't mean to hurt her. She's just not used to dealing with a difficult 4-year-old all day, every day. Then maybe she shouldn't be Emma's primary caregiver. What choice do I have? I can't afford a nanny. I can barely afford food and rent and utilities, let alone childcare. You could accept help. From who? You made sure everyone knows what a failure I am. My mother is living with me because she can't afford her own place anymore. My friends from the country club don't return my calls. My colleagues at work are starting to notice I'm drowning. So, tell me, Sarah, where exactly am I supposed to get help? From me. Silence. What? I'll help, but there are conditions. Of course there are. We go back to court. We reinstate my parental rights. Full joint custody, 50-50 split. We both have equal say in Emma's life, equal time, equal responsibility. And financially, we split everything 50-50. I pay half, you pay half. But that also means we both need to agree on expenses. No more unilateral decisions. We co-parent like adults. That's it? That's all you want? No, I also want your mother out of Emma's life. What? Helen is toxic, David. She always has been. She sabotaged our marriage, she sabotaged my relationship with Emma, and now she's taking out her frustrations on a 4-year-old. I want her to have zero unsupervised access to Emma. If she wants to visit, she does it when one of us is present. And the first time she says something cruel to Emma or to either of us in front of Emma, she's cut off entirely. She's my mother. And she's a bad influence on your daughter. My daughter. Our daughter. Choose, David. More silence. She'll never agree to this. Then she can move out and support herself. Your choice. You're asking me to choose between my mother and my daughter. I'm asking you to choose between enabling your mother's toxicity and protecting your daughter, which, honestly, you should have done years ago. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, what else? Therapy for you, for me, for Emma. Family therapy for all of us together. Emma's been through trauma watching her parents fight and then having her mother disappear. We need to help her process that. Okay. And you need to apologize. I'm sorry. Not to me. To Emma. You told her I didn't want her. You let her believe her mother abandoned her. When we get joint custody back, you're going to sit down with Emma and tell her the truth. That mommy and daddy made mistakes, but mommy never stopped loving her. His voice cracked. Okay. And David, if you ever try to use Emma against me again, if you ever try to turn her against me or withhold her out of spite, I will make the last year look like a warm-up. Understood? Understood. The court hearing was remarkably simple. David's lawyer petitioned to reinstate my parental rights. I agreed, 10. The judge looked confused but approved it. Helen's lawyer tried to intervene, arguing that Helen had established a relationship with Emma and should have grandparent visitation rights. My lawyer presented the CPS reports documenting the bruises. The judge denied Helen's petition and suggested she focus on her own recovery. Helen left the courthouse screaming at David that he was an ungrateful son. Emma came home with me that first weekend confused but happy. She clung to me like a barnacle, afraid I'd disappear again. Daddy said you didn't want me, she whispered that first night as I tucked her in. Daddy was wrong, I said, smoothing her hair. I've always wanted you, always. I needed to make sure you were safe and taken care of. Sometimes grown-ups make things complicated. Did you and Daddy have a fight? We did, a big one. But we're going to do better now. We're going to work together to take care of you, okay? Okay. She snuggled into her pillow. I missed you, Mommy. I missed you too, baby, so much. The next 2 years weren't easy. David and I had to learn to co-parent, to communicate, to put Emma first, even when we didn't like each other. Therapy helped. Emma flourished with the proper learning support, which we could afford when splitting costs. She grew into a confident, happy 6-year-old who split her time between 2 homes and knew she was loved in both. David grew too. He learned to budget, to prioritize, to ask for help when he needed it. He dated occasionally, but never seriously. He said he was focusing on being a good father first. Helen moved to Florida to live with her sister. She sent Emma birthday cards, but never visited. Emma didn't seem to miss her. As for me, I finally sold some of my investments and bought a small house. Nothing extravagant. I'd learned my lesson about being flashy. But it was mine, paid for with money I'd earned through my memories of the future. One Sunday afternoon, when Emma was at a friend's birthday party, David came to pick her up from my place. He stood in my doorway, looking around at the house he'd never seen before. Nice place, he said. Thanks. I've been thinking about something, he said carefully. That year when you terminated your rights. You were never actually struggling, were you? I smiled slightly. No. You had money the whole time. You could have helped with Emma's expenses, but you chose not to. That's right. To teach me a lesson. To make you understand what you put me through. What you made me feel. The desperation, the exhaustion, the judgment. He nodded slowly. I've been in therapy for 2 years now talking about all of this, and my therapist asked me something interesting. She asked if I thought you were wrong. Was I? I don't know. What you did was cruel, calculating. You watched me drown and did nothing. Yes. But I watched you drown first. For years. And I didn't just do nothing. I actively made it worse. I judged you. I blamed you. I let my mother poison our relationship. Yes. So I guess what I'm asking is, are we even now? I thought about it. About my death in the first timeline, alone and unmourned. About this timeline, where I'd saved myself at Emma's temporary expense. About the fact that we'd both hurt each other, both failed, both grown. We're even, I said. He nodded. Good, that's good. He hesitated. Emma told me yesterday that she's glad we're both her parents now, that she has 2 homes and twice as much love. My throat tightened. She said that? Yeah. She also said she hopes we never get back together because she likes having her own room at both houses. I laughed. She's pragmatic. She gets that from you. He smiled, and for the first time in years, it was genuine. You're a good mom, Sarah. I should have said that years ago. You're a really good mom. You're getting better at being a dad. High praise from you. Don't let it go to your head. Emma burst through the door then, covered in cake frosting and carrying a balloon animal. Mommy, Daddy. Daddy, look at what I got. We spent the next 10 minutes admiring her balloon dog and hearing every detail of the party. Then David took her home and I was alone again. I pulled out my phone and looked at my bank account. $8 million, grown from careful investments and remembered future events. More than enough to retire early, to travel, to do anything I wanted. But I didn't want to travel. I didn't want luxury. I'd already died once chasing money to prove I could provide for my daughter. This time, I just wanted to be Emma's mom, to show up for school plays and parent-teacher conferences, to help with homework and host sleepovers, to be present and alive and enough. I'd come back from the future to save myself and to save Emma. It had taken a cruel path to get here, but we'd made it. And I'd learned something important. Revenge can teach lessons, but it's love that heals. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Good night, Mommy, I love you. I texted back, good night, baby, I love you more. And I meant it. Every word. The real epilogue came 3 years later when Emma was 8. David got remarried to a kind woman named Jennifer who worked as a teacher and had no interest in his money. They were happy, and Jennifer treated Emma with gentle respect, never trying to replace me, but always supporting her. I'd started dating too. A fellow teacher, someone who'd never known me in my desperate first timeline, who only knew me as the confident, secure woman I'd become. Helen died of another heart attack. Emma didn't cry at the funeral, neither did I. But the most satisfying moment came at Emma's 3rd grade parent-teacher conference. Emma is thriving, her teacher said, smiling at both David and me sitting side by side in tiny chairs. Her reading has improved dramatically with the tutoring support, and she's one of the kindest children in the class. You should be very proud. We are, David said, Miss Son. And I have to say, it's so refreshing to see co-parents who work together so well. Emma never plays you against each other, never seems confused about expectations. Whatever you're doing, it's working. After the conference, David and I walked out to the parking lot together. She's right, he said. We're doing a good job. We are. I never thanked you, for what you did. The way you shocked me into being better. You never needed to thank me. You needed to learn. I did learn the hard way, but I learned. We reached my car. Emma was with Jennifer tonight at their place, so I had the evening free. Sarah, David said as I was unlocking my door, in another life, do you think we could have made it? If I'd been different from the start, if my mother hadn't poisoned everything, if we'd been real partners? I thought about my first life, where I'd loved him desperately and it had killed me. And I thought about this life where I'd let him drown to teach him empathy. No, I said honestly. We weren't right for each other. We were never going to work. But we're making something better now. We're making a family that works for Emma. That's enough. He nodded. That's more than enough. I drove home through the sunset thinking about second chances and revenge and redemption, about how sometimes you have to break everything to rebuild it right. I'd died once, broke and exhausted and alone. I'd been reborn and I'd used that gift to save myself and my daughter. The bills that had destroyed me in my first life had taught David what I'd tried to tell him for years. Being a parent isn't about claiming credit or winning custody. It's about showing up, paying up, and doing the work, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And in the end, I'd won something better than revenge. I'd won my life back, and Emma had won two parents who'd finally grown up enough to deserve her. That was worth everything.